Hey, welcome back to another in a series of interviews of state and local races in the United States for the 2022 election. Today, we are going to be talking to Arun Bhumitra, who is running for the City Council of Rolling Hills in California. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Dennis. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and meeting with me on Zoom. I'm looking forward to an interesting conversation with you.
Oh, yes, sir. Well, let's start with the office that you are running for, the City of Rolling Hills, and tell us a little bit about that and how you come to be interested in this particular office.
Yeah, well, I live in the city for the past 25 years, and it's about 3 square miles, and it's a nicely situated, gated community. And I've been looking around and seeing what's going on in the city for so many years, and I don't see any progress being made. We are probably one of the most fire-prone areas in the country. With the way the vegetation grows, you have the eucalyptus, magnolia, pine trees growing all over there indiscriminately, and we are not doing much about it. What happens as I look around, prevention is better than cure. And so I look, that's just one issue. Then you have the public safety issue. As inflation is getting there, gas prices are going down there, the poverty is creeping in, the homelessness is growing by leaps and bounds. So I see our city going to be very vulnerable to that. And then to solve some of these problems, nothing can be done if you don't have communications. The cell phone coverage, dropped calls, bad reception, and not enough coverage is horrible. And we can send rovers to Mars, but in our 3 square miles, we cannot provide good coverage. That is ridiculous and unacceptable. More so, I happen to be in that business. I was one of the first dealers in this city in Los Angeles in 1987. Well, cell phones emerged on the horizon over here. I was recruited to be one of the 8 vendors. There were no direct sales force at that time by LS Cellular, which is the predecessor of AT&T. So I can go through these items which I mentioned: traffic safety, public safety, fire safety, community amenities, mobile phone coverage. Then you have the local issues like coyotes, gophers, the list goes on and on. Animosity between neighbors, even though it's one of the most well-to-do neighborhoods, but yet you still have issues like that. I worked in the cell phone, I was in a shipbuilding in India, and I worked for on the F-18, the Top Gun, the plane in Top Gun. I was a project engineer on that. In my line in manufacturing, you have 0 defects. If you can have thousands of airframe parts and ship parts which are 0 defect, why can't we have in the place we live? So that's the motivation for me to run and make some improvements in the city where I live. And hopefully I'm going to be carried out one day.
Very good. Well, okay. Well, you know what? Yeah, as a fellow alumni of the aerospace world, because I worked in that industry too for a while. I can see where that's coming from, and you're definitely a neighbor of mine just to the south of where I am, because we're both part of the South Bay cadre of Southern California. Let's talk a little bit about some of the issues that you went over. Poverty and homelessness. How does that impact Rolling Hills?
Well, it directly doesn't affect an all over here, because the median price of home is 2.5 million plus. So everybody who moves in over here, they're not really worried about money. For example, I was in a block captain meeting yesterday, and I told them, hey, your insurance rates can go down if you start home hardening and do a mitigation of fuel management of the canyons we have. And for example, I got my insurance from $3,500 from Farmers to $1,600 on Geico. Why don't you look into it? I got some dirty stays. What are you talking about? That's peanuts for us. So that for them, it's not of an issue. However, surrounding areas coming down neighborhoods, it is an issue with the homelessness, and something has to be done. Unfortunately, Uh, of course, I'm running for a city council race. There's bad management all around. And so the problem is a lot deeper than a mental problem or issues or drug use. There's more to it than meets the eye. But I can be happy to elaborate if time permits.
Okay, very good. Well, I think we'll save that for a follow-up after the election because that is a big topic. Now you had mentioned cell phone coverage, which is very interesting because I was recently in a conference where I was on a panel discussing broadband access for all, which is an FCC initiative having to do with improving coverage of broadband cell service and other communication systems throughout the country in order to provide what is essentially universal access to services. It's aimed primarily at lower income, which is not clearly not the case in Rolling Hills. But you basically pointed out that there are many parts of the country that have terrain issues. How does that affect Rolling Hills, and what has been the history of the interaction with cell service providers and whatever else in terms of the infrastructure? And what do you think you can do about it on the city council going forward?
Yeah, let me answer your first question, which you started with first. Yes, under the American Rescue Plan from the Biden administration, there's $95.3 billion sitting by the Department of Commerce. Gail Remando, I also serve on that advisory board, has sitting down there for rural telecom. And Rolling Hills is designated kind of agriculture, and it qualifies for them grants over there.
Oh, really?
Now, yeah, and so is the many other countries, but it's just that people have to be informed about them. Hey, you got to fill up some paperwork. Nobody's going to give it to you just like that. As far as Rolling Hills is concerned, the problem is the coverage, the cell site, the reception, drop calls, and so I think it's I guess an effort, joint effort by the phone companies, by the local residents to do that. We do have a little problem that our residents are only 2,000. For the phone companies to make a big investment, the return on investment is not really there. So they don't really see the need for it. There's also a saying, a squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the people over here, the council and this homeowners association, there are two entities who work on this, are not making a concentrated effort. They're not aggressive enough to go down and knock at the doors of the powers to be at the phone companies to help them put more cell sites. Then there is another thing, the homeowners don't want microwave radiation in their backyard. They want no magnetic fields affecting them. So having said that, you can work around the system. We can try to get the vegetation done, trimmed, so your cell phones work out of line of sight. So you should be able to have microcells amplifiers with signals, send signals around the canyons, put towers which can be camouflaged, and between the tree limbs. So and get the coverage. So there are solutions to the problem. They're not very difficult. It's just that they need leadership. And me being on the councilman, I'm looking forward to take that role of improving the coverage, reception, drop calls. So not only do we solve the cell phone problem, we hit three birds with one stone. The fire safety, the public safety, better communications in case of emergencies.
There you go. Well, all yeah, no, I mean, so I love doing these interviews on local races because you learn so much about how the tapestry of America is constructed and how each community has, very specific issues that each has to deal with and specific impediments that need to be dealt with. And when you talk to candidates in this area, it's really educational to see what the different approaches are that people think will work and will not work in a particular neighborhood.
Thank you.
Are there any bigger issues coming in from larger government entities, state, county, federal, that you see impacting your town? And if there are, what's your plan for that?
A good question. Well, I'm going to start with a more local issue, the fire safety. With the drought conditions, not in water and dry vegetation, we are very susceptible to that. And so that's something which we have to look very seriously. On the you mentioned about from the other government agencies or the state government, we're looking at SB 9 and SB 10 and low income housing. So, every 4 years, I guess there's a builder's remedy. What I don't know if you're familiar with that. So what happened is that we have the builders, developers have to come up with a plan as to what they're going down. If not, then what they do, present to the government, state government. The government comes up and then tells you, the legislature comes and tells you, this is what we want. So they've been saying there's a shortage of so many housing, thousands of units and all. At this moment, I'm hitting a senior moment. A shortage of housing of say like 5,000 units or something like that. However, that really has not been tallied. It has not been properly surveyed. Do we really need that much more housing? There's a lot of people leaving Los Angeles. There are not enough people coming over there. Population is decreasing. And so then we have to look into that. A proper audit has to be done. What exactly do we need? Now, it looks that somebody's in the legislature has come up with numbers, Scott, Wiener, and gang. I shouldn't talk like that, Scott. And so they've come up with units and they have got different cycles for the mandates for different cities, what they've come down. And so what they're talking about in Rolling Hills, because our acreage is from 1 to 2 acres, most of the lots, some are a little bit larger. But then we also have canyons and fires areas because the vegetation is very inflammable over here because of the canyons. So it is a little bit different. And then we don't have the infrastructure. So we are in the process of working with the state to qualify for that. The issues mandates they've given that we need so many housing in your city. So what they've done is they can identify a lot of ADUs to supplement that requirement. So that is going down and we complied with the 6th cycle on that for the next 4 years. However, there's also a question about low income housing, the mandate which has come up. So what we've done in Rolling Hills is that they've identified there's a school, changed the zoning to it, which could be for future use for low income housing. So they've complied with the law as it stands.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, interesting, because I actually have been working on those issues on a task force with the OCC for about the last couple of years. So tell me, and I'm very curious, so I'm going to dive a little bit more in there with you. What has been the uptake of ADUs, which for people that aren't familiar with that, these are called accessory dwelling units, which are add-on units to existing properties. And is that something that is seen by a community like Rolling Hills as a way to comply with things like SB 9, SB 10?
Well, Rolling Hills is against the SB 9 and 10, just like some of the other cities you mentioned. They like their lifestyle. They want to preserve it. The reason they moved into Rolling Hills was safety, security for them. And, people have done well in life and they want to be safe and secure over here. So they're against SB 9 and 10. And so as far as the answer your question about ADUs, what's happened, we have an aging population and 10% of the residents out of the 720 homes have horses. So those are being converted from barns are being converted ADU. However, the look aesthetically has to look like a barn, but it could be used as an ADU. And there are from 600 to about 1,200 square feet. So they are being identified. They've been about like 40, 45 of those units have been converted as ADUs in our city.
Yeah, actually, that's not, given the number of homes that you have in your city and the number of ADUs that are there. That's actually a pretty good percentage, certainly far better than other parts of Los Angeles County that have a much lower density acceptance of this. So that's very, very interesting that in a town that, and I can understand the resistance to things like SB 9 and SB 10, that the ADU conversion is actually far more advanced than it is in other parts of LA County. Very, very interesting. I mean, you always learn something new when you get when you ask this question of what's actually happening at the micro level of these types of things. And certainly an insight that you're the lucidness with which you responded and the detail to that question is, I'm always impressed by how people that live and work at the local city council level are so tuned in to these kinds of issues at the tiniest level of detail. And you've certainly done your homework on that one. What's your message to the people of Rolling Hills as to why they should vote for you in this election?
Well, I've lived here for 25 years, and I've been involved with the community at all levels, being the member of the Caballeros, the Horse Association, the Seniors Club, president of the tennis club, pickleball, the walking and hiking group. So you're familiar with all issues over the last 25 years. I raised 2 daughters over here, so you're familiar with the school system. And and to answer your question, why am I different and what do I bring to the table? I will be the only engineer over there. Most of the issues in the city are zoning, construction, development, mobile phone coverages, fiscal responsibility, managing budgets. I have a BS degree in mechanical engineering and an MBA in business administration. So I've started several companies, ran them successfully. So I believe fiscal conservativeness to the managing the budget, keeping our reserves safe. Though I would say this still reserves are pretty good in the city, and the budget is balanced. But as we go back, with inflation and recession, we got to be some more frugalness we need to be done. For example, so as an engineer, you can say, hey, are we buying a 350,000 siren system? Do we really need that, guys? You can buy a $50 siren and place in different places in case of emergencies and letting people know. We could supplement with that. So a lot of the issues, being an engineer, you cut the cheese. What's happening right now, they have these meetings again and again. They keep on postponing to the next meeting. The same issues which were there 8 years, the cell phone coverage, the public safety, the fire safety, wildlife management, traffic safety, are still there. Nobody, you got to solve a problem and move on. You can't linger with the same issues. We could improve a style of lifestyle over there. We can make people happy, the residents happy. So hopefully they don't have too much animosity between neighbors. Solve some real problems. And that's what I would like to see. This is the golden age. You live in Rolling Hills. You worked hard in your life. You want to smell the roses. And yet you want to be able, everybody lives in harmony and friendliness, then overlooking over their shoulder.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I'm going to ask you the zinger political acceptance question that is heavily on my mind in terms of your candidacy in the city of Rolling Hills, because I know that that you and I share a common and somewhat disadvantaged background when it comes to the population of Rolling Hills Estates, and that both of us went to UCLA. What do you say to the people that went to USC on why they should vote for you?
Well, I always tell, whether you're from a USC and a UCLA, or you're different ethnic group, whatever it is, we are all Americans. We got to work together. It's okay when you're on the sports arena playing a football game to be about your alma mater. You got to be patriotic about it and encourage it. But at the end of the day, it's all about working together, living where Americans. We got to make America great again. And that's what I would preach to everybody. We're too divided in this country, too polarized. That's not good.
Interestingly enough, that is one of the major themes I have run into interviewing people. This polarization is and it's a common thread by pretty much every candidate. It sounds like everybody is frustrated with that condition, and you just echoed it yet again. Well, all right. So you've done your appeal to the red and gold people, which is good. How do people find out more about you for this election? What's the website and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, I do have a website, but also we have 3 gates, actually 4. One is kind of closed because of security reasons. The 3 main gates to the city, and I have signs over there right at the entrances. And then also have some people in Rolling Hills, at least that's what they say, we don't like signs. So I've got sprinkled a few signs here and there. So I don't be kind of overwhelm people with my name and out there. So I got my signs over there. I'm going knocking door to door. I'm texting it. I'm emailing people important issue, and I got endorsements from a lot of very, very important people from other cities too. What's important is working with other cities, because a lot of the issues you brought earlier, we need a collective effort to get the powers in Sacramento and Washington know that we are united, we think alike. So a lot of the people like Don Kanabi, the county supervisor, very popular county supervisor for the 20 years, Steve Cooley, the district attorney, former district attorney from 2000 to 2012, Carmen Trutanich, again, city attorney of Los Angeles, and a whole bunch of mayors like Tasha Serda from Gardena, Frank Zurinin from Rolling Hills Estate, Eric Algeria from Rancho POS. So I got a lot of support within the residents, and that's why I ran. I was asked to run by a lot of people, and then at the same time, neighboring governments. So I'm a kind of a unifier. I join with people. I don't have I'm very unassuming. I want to solve problems. I'm a problem solver.
Oh, there you go. And the website's URL
Is electarun.com.
Okay, very good. Well, a very interesting and very informative interview. I thank you for your time, sir, and best of luck in the election.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. You too, sir. Have the great Sunday afternoon. Thank you so much.
All right.